Now that you're making music, I honestly could not remember how our theme song goes.
You didn't get it from that remarkably verbatim.
Well, I was going to continue it on, and I was like, I don't remember how it goes.
I could only do as good as I did, and that's being generous, because I just wrapped up I've been a little behind, the Dark City episode.
Nah, that's all right. I've been behind, too. You notice all of our episodes during the holidays were late? There's a reason for it.
Yep. Holidays.
Yeah.
But Dark City is up, and Rocky should be done soonish.
I'm still proud of that Rocky episode. I need to say,
that was a good episode. I still have the last half hour to get through.
Yeah, there's a lot to it, and I wish I could have gotten video of Lloyd, but hell, I'm just thankful that I got such clear audio.
Right. Yeah.
Which we can throw up a picture of him or something, and it'll work.
Yeah.
It edits itself. All right. Well, I'll read this intro. Got to get into character. Crusted the clown water.
Red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather. The arsonist had oddly shaped feet.
Warning! This movie podcast actually discusses movies. Be aware that it may discuss any of the following elements: endings, surprise twists, unexpected cameos, and all manner of spoilers. If this doesn't appeal to you, why listen to a movie podcast? Without further ado, please enjoy our feature presentation, The Shamelist Picture Show.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Shameless Picture Show. I am Michael Vyers, and with me, as always, is one man that definitely knows a thing or two about witches.
Nick Richards.
It wasn't my best one, but I made it work.
There was a line towards the end that made me think of it. That might be a good intro one, but I don't remember.
There was one I wanted to use, but your name doesn't work, and they're like, if your name starts with an S, you're a snake. And I was like,
all right, we'll take it again. If his name had started with an S, it would have been a snake.
Nick Richards! Oh.
Where were we?
On this episode, we'll be discussing Dario Argento's masterpiece, Suspiria. Suspiria tells the story of a young Suzy Bannion that goes to a very prestigious dance academy in Germany. Once there, she finds the school isn't all it's cracked up to be, and it's just a cover during a series of bloody murders. Suzy, along with her schoolmate Sara, look to uncover what's really happening. Suspiria is directed by Dario Argento, written by Dario Argento and his muse at the time, Daria Nicolodi, and stars Jessica Harper, Stefani Casini, Barbara Magnolfi, Alida Valli, and Joan Bennett.
Roses are red, violets are blue, but the iris is the flower that will mean the end of it.
You can run from Suspiria. Suspiria. You can hide from Suspiria. Suspiria. But you cannot escape. Suspiria. The only thing more terrifying than the last 12 minutes of Suspiria are the first 92.
You know what I've realized whenever I write these intros, Nick?
What's that?
That I'm always like, I try to write them so they're spoiler-free, but we talk about the spoilers right in the episode anyways.
And now we have our intro that says, don't be offended about spoilers.
Yeah.
But I like the flavor of your intro. I think
honestly,
it's a jumping off point.
It sounds dumb, but it's honestly the hardest part about every episode is figuring out how to describe this movie quickly without giving too much away and still be able to talk about who wrote it, who's in it, and any other pertinent information.
Sure.
One thing I forgot to mention in this intro was 2017 was Suspiria's 40th anniversary.
Happy anniversary, Suspiria.
Yeah. So, this was on your Shamelist. I had seen
was.
it once before. I wouldn't say I'm an expert on the film. Like, you know, it's not a movie I knew beginning to end, but I had seen it. But it's on your Shamelist. So let's talk about witches and Suspiria and colored lighting.
Was there colored lighting? I didn't notice any colored lighting.
It might have been a little bit. I don't know.
My first impression.
Real quick, I'm curious to see what you say, because I told Amanda, I feel like I know some of Nick's thoughts on this film already.
Yeah.
But let's definitely hear your thoughts.
Reminded me a lot of my memory, because it's been a while, of Rosemary's Baby.
Okay.
What have you done to it? What have you done to its eyes?
Moody, where
All of them witches.
not a whole lot happens through most of it.
It's funny because you're not wrong. Or not a lot happens, but a ton happens at the same time.
There's a lot of things that for me didn't really pay off, and I get why they were in there. But like the jump scares of like, say, the bat sequence,
Yeah.
or I spent the majority of the movie a little underwhelmed. It is obviously beautifully shot. The lighting is stark and makes it interesting. You know, it's a feast for the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Now I remember that other jump point that didn't pay off for me was the maggots, the maggot sequence. It's cool aesthetically, but didn't really add. There was a lot of time spent not adding a whole lot to the story for me. Jumping back, so the lighting, obviously the locations and all of those rooms made it really rewarding to watch.
Mm-hmm.
The soundtrack is fascinating, but I spent the majority of the film preparing to be disappointed, and I enjoyed the ending, and it pulled it up a bit for me. The ending wasn't good enough to go, oh, okay, I get it all now, and now it was all worth the journey. Like, it, not bad. It had a lot of really good elements to it, but in the end, I was a little underwhelmed.
That's fair, and that's honestly kind of how I thought you were going to feel, mainly because I know the type of films that you like, and you are a story first, everything else second type of guy.
Yeah.
And Argento is not.
Right.
There's a magazine. It's a Canadian magazine called Rue Morgue. It's a horror magazine, and every so often they do these books. This one is called Rue Morgue Magazine's Horror Movie Heroes.
Cool.
And in this one,
Rue Morgue, of course, the Edgar Allan Poe reference.
Yeah. And this one, in this episode, not this episode, but in this volume, they've got they talk about a bunch of different directors. In this one, they have a conversation between John Carpenter about Dario Argento, because he's one of his favorite filmmakers. But what's really interesting to me is the introduction by the writer Michael Doyle, who I'm going to go on a whim and say you have not seen much of Argento's work before.
I'm not sure if I've seen any of his work until now.
This kind of gives a nice surmise to who he is, his work, and then I think it's a jumping off point, because I've got things to comment about everything that you've said. Not necessarily defending his decisions, but trying to explain necessarily why he did them.
Sure.
So, Michael Doyle writes, "For some, Dario Argento is the Italian Hitchcock, a Baroque visionary whose best films are a delirious alchemy of righteous color, bravura camera movement, nerve-shredding music, and stylized violence. For others, his movies are empty, excessive, and barely coherent, vile and lurid products of an unrepenting misogynist. Whatever your view, one cannot deny that Argento's influence on horror cinema was profound. Suspiria from 1977, his classic tale of witchcraft at a German dance academy, is a breathtaking assault on the visual and oral senses that stands as one of the genre's most endearing triumphs. His other arresting masterworks include The Bird with the Crystal Plumage from 1970, Deep Red from 1975, Inferno from 1980, which is actually kind of a sequel to this, Tenebrae in 1982, and Opera in 1987, which all effectively marry high art, rigorous technical skill, and crass exploitation to create something uniquely lyrical and unsettling.
Yeah, I agree with that. And Tenebrae, you added to my shame list because that's one of your top films, yes?
Yes. It's a movie he made, because to understand kind of where Argento's coming from is in Italy, there is a style of film known as giallo. It's in a lot of ways, it's kind of a precursor to slasher films. They kind of went in tandem to them. Usually very violent crime films. You know, if you've ever seen the image of a black-gloved killer, that's an image that's evocative of the giallo. Giallo meaning yellow in Italian, because a lot of the pulp novels were printed on yellow paper.
Okay.
Dario Argento was one of the guys who really kind of brought a sense of class to this. Him and Mario Bava and a couple other ones. And his first film, Bird with the Crystal Plumage, is kind of, you can see the beginnings of this idea of, you know, high art thinking with a lowbrow subject matter. And the way that he built suspense and tension was very evocative of Hitchcock. So much so that the film came out in 1970. I didn't realize Hitchcock was still alive at that point. It was actually his favorite movie of that year.
Okay.
And then a lot of people say, because when he met Daria Nicolodi, which was his longtime girlfriend, that Argento kind of... Suspiria is his second to first film.
Okay.
Because the type of films he was making completely changed. Right. And it became like this fever dream, this assault on your senses. And I will be the first to admit, Dario doesn't care about story. A lot of, and even critics like who love this film will say that maggot scene didn't pay off. There's really nothing there other than to just add an idea of dread and uncomfort. Why is it there? We don't know. And it's one of those things that you can deeply look into the film. And I'll be the first to admit, first time I saw Suspiria, I didn't love it. I was like, what did I just watch? Did I miss something? Like, it's almost like this idea of nightmare logic, and you feel like you're in a weird fever dream because, honestly, the music beats you over the head.
Yeah.
And to some, you get a vile reaction from it. But to others, it's really fascinating. And like, I had the benefit of watching this on a Blu-ray with a nice sound system where they restored its soundtrack, and to hear the way sounds move throughout the soundscape is unsettling. Like, normally, you have a two-shot, you know, the audio comes out the middle of the speaker.
Yeah.
You know, the only time, like, it'll come out of the far right or the far left is when the character's off screen. Dario is not afraid to do a two-shot and have all the character on the left side's audio come out just the left speaker, and the person on the right just the right speaker. When you're watching a two-shot, it's like almost disjointing. It's kind of like what Kubrick tried to do in The Shining, where he was just adding intentional things to throw you off.
Yeah, there were actually several points in this film that evoked The Shining for me.
Good evening, Mr. Torrance. Good evening. Hi, Lloyd. Been away, but now I'm back.
Like?
You want me to actually support my point? Damn it.
Yes.
The one that I remember most vividly was the swimming pool sequence.
Yes.
That over the head shot with that graphic, very very geometric graphic pattern in the bottom of the pool,
And that really nice push in.
Yep. Just it felt, and some of the other slow pushes throughout just gave you the same feeling that you'd get as you move around the hotel in The Shining.
Yeah. And
I bumped my mic, and then all thought went out of my head.
It's like when I plugged my mic in and my computer shut off.
Right, yeah. I am the computer.
I think that's a really interesting way to look at it, because Kubrick was inspired by a lot of European cinema, and these very symmetrical shots and well, now I can't think correctly, are all very indicative of European cinema. And like the one thing you have to can't deny about Suspiria is it's art directed to hell.
Oh yeah.
Like you never feel like there's something in the shot that's not intended to be there.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed, again, I've made this statement before. It's really hard for me to dislike a film. And
yeah, I'm in the same boat.
I am far from disliking this film.
Yeah, I kind of knew after I watched it again, is like, Nick, this is not Nick's bag. He's not going to hate it, but this is not Nick's bag.
Yeah, it's not in my primary wheelhouse, but it was a fun watch. It was, a treat for the eyes. The soundtrack and the visuals together, you go through something, you feel something, so it was a success. It just didn't stimulate me in all of the ways that I like to be when I'm watching something.
And it's one of those things that I think I remember reading somewhere that an author said that you don't watch Suspiria, you experience it.
Right.
And he said, unfortunately, he's like, the first time I saw it was on a grainy VHS tape, and he's like, and if I could have any experience back, he's like, if I could re-experience Suspiria for the first time, because he said the first time you see it, that's your first time.
Yeah.
It's never going to be the same the second time. And like I'm kind of bummed out that there was a screening here in Milwaukee that was on the big screen. I feel like that would have been a completely just different experience altogether. But no, what I find fascinating and kind of amusing at the same time is the fact that you look at this film and the story is whatever. I could tell you what the story is about, but it's not the first and foremost thought of this film. But what
you
I
don't
find
sell this film on the story. You sell it on the mood and the visuals and the aesthetics.
Like, none of the trailers sold this movie on the story at all. Especially the American trailers, which are weird. But what's interesting about it is how it's intentional in a strange way, because you can't watch this film and say that you know by watching this film everything in the frame is intentional as hell. Yeah. And it's just weird that the story is the thing that he cares the least about, considering his early films, while there's times where they kind of felt fever dreamish because not everything added up, they were murder mysteries, they were whodunit, so everything kind of had to lead into each other and be this, and it's almost just like an opium dream of a film.
Yeah, he released himself from the confines of story.
Yeah, and actually in a lot, like, in some of the interviews and documentaries I've watched about Argento, he talks about, like, he made his film Deep Red, which was kind of his thesis statement of the giallo, of everything that he learned, and then was kind of like, well, I don't know what to do next. And Daria Nicolodi, his girlfriend at the time, said, well, don't do another giallo. Do something different. And she kind of pushed him into making Suspiria, because I don't know what of this is rumor and hearsay, how much of it is true, but there's talks that Daria Nicolodi went to a dance school went to a school that she felt was a front for witchcraft, and there was also a book. Let's see if I can find the title of it right now. It's a book by Thomas de Quincey. It's supposed to be recounting an opium dream about three mothers, so three witches, and their foothold in like this triangle of countries that are supposed to be, you know, an area where there's more witches in the world than anywhere else. And Dario Argento honestly believes this. He believes these witches are real.
Must cost plenty to heat this pile of rocks. Yeah. Oh, yeah? Well, top that, Lula Brigidit.
It's based on a book written by a guy who was high on opium. Like, it's gonna be weird.
Right.
What I find interesting, I'm gonna ask you, see if you notice this at all, because there's another writer who writes for a website called Kino Eye, which is about their main thing is kind of like an online zine, and their whole thing is about new perspectives on European film. And the writer Linda Schultz Sauce, maybe I'm saying that wrong, refers to Argento as Disney's hidden reverse. And I'm curious if you noticed this, because one of his all-time favorite films, and the film that he took the most influence in while making this, is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Okay.
I told Amanda this, and she's like, "Where?" And I was like, "I can see it." Like, so I'm just curious.
I would have to watch it again. That is such a mental departure that I would have to watch it with that in mind to possibly make any. Like, I can't make those connections in retrospect, I don't think. I'd have to watch it with that in mind.
Well, but maybe this one will help you a little bit. Like, because how I think he means it is because, to me, it feels very reminiscent of a Grimm fairy tale.
Yeah. Yep.
And then the colors of Snow White. He essentially is making a living cartoon.
Yeah. It's funny you describe it that way, because given the films that we have watched, it evoked Creepshow for me.
Yeah.
Which is that, transition between animation and real life.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just trying to feed you stuff, trying to invoke you, Nick.
Trigger me, Michael. Trigger me.
Because I'm giving you some of my best stuff, and you're like, yeah, I see
sure.
it. No,
okay.
I don't. I knew this was going to be a hard film to discuss. Like, I even said this with Amanda, because, like, it's a movie that's hard to put into words. And while there are a lot of essays and articles out there about the film, it's like, how do I summarize this?
Dive in. Well, let me look over my notes real quick. There was one point, it was during one of her earlier episodes.
Okay.
And she's walking around the school for the first time, I think, and she sees the woman, like, polishing something that kind of looks knife-like, but it's from a tray of, like, a tea set or something. And she starts kind of freaking out and just breathing heavy, and there's no reason for it. And I thought at that point and wrote it. Here's my note. She better be the killer or magically linked somehow, otherwise she's being ridiculous. Which you do come to find out later that she is being affected by these witches' spells.
Yeah. And for me, what I find internally fascinating about this film is these little things. Like, I love kind of going into this movie and not knowing if the students know about this school's past. If if some of them are in the know, some of them are not. The witches are, feeding off of this youthful energy. You've got these housemaids that all kind of look like characters from a grim fairy tale, and the little German boy just standing around with his shorts. And
he missed the set. He was supposed to be on Children of the Corn, but just went to the wrong studio that day.
And all that fascinates me. And this backstory that is kind of there, but never quite explained. And Argento made 3 of these mother. It's called the Mother of Tears trilogy, which is Suspiria, Inferno, and another movie called Mother of Tears. Inferno kind of ties Suspiria to a universe, but then Mother of Tears has the issue of over-explaining everything and trying to tie it all in.
Okay.
And I feel like what I enjoy about this film is not quite knowing the Mother of Sighs, why she decided to go sleep in dormitory with all the girls when the maggots were attacking, and all these little things, like if it's luring it in, why is there a werewolf with a knife? I assume he's all hairy and and then there's little things that I think just like are so bold for Argento, like just to think like he made this film with the intention. He's like, I want the beginning of this film to be as intense as the climax of a normal horror film.
Okay.
And there's a lot of people that feel like it fizzles out after that because the beginning and those opening deaths are so intense and so well directed and shot and everything with the stained glass window and the almost paint-like red blood and
that like neon pink blood throughout really caught my eye.
It's kind of an Italian thing I've noticed from some their blood is very stylized and out there and then I just feel for I'm just curious what this set was like because Argento doesn't speak any English.
Okay.
His lead actress is American.
Right.
Everyone
else
kind of
reminded me of a young Karen Allen.
I could see it. And other than like Joan Bennett and that lead, I think everyone spoke Italian. I've heard stories of these Italian sets where they don't have a translator usually. So, like, I just imagine, like, this had to be a weird experience. And, like, you're acting against someone who doesn't speak your language. And, like, Clint Eastwood tells this story about when he was making the spaghetti westerns that, he'd be acting against a guy who speaks Italian, doesn't understand any English, and they just know their lines. And when the other person stops, you start talking.
Right, yeah, that's funny.
And that's, like, I just imagine this film had to be weird and to make, and plus they didn't really have any strict laws at the time about endangerment of people.
Yeah.
So at the end when they're blowing up the school, they're just blowing it up around her, and like her look of fear is legitimate because she could blow up.
Yeah. Well, there was the look of fear, but then she gets outside from this very bizarre and obviously dangerous situation. And the smile that comes across her face felt so out of place for, like...
I like the smile, though.
I don't dislike it, but I wanted to know what was going through her head because it seemed so out of place based on what she just experienced.
Like, to me, it's a smile of, that was weird. Like, what did I just experience?
It seems so genuinely happy, like, purely, like... like what you would get walking into Disneyland for the first time, or seeing a really pretty rainbow.
Well, wasn't it raining at the end of that scene too?
It was, yeah.
It's washing her of these experiences.
Right.
And plus, there's also the theory that she's a white witch and didn't know it. And there's a bunch of theories that kind of go into this. That the reason she was able to vanquish Helena Marcos is because she is a white witch. And
that Helena Marcos sequence reminded me a lot of a D&D encounter. Like,
okay,
she right, okay, so she sees the shadow of the thing, pulls it aside. Oh, she casts invisibility. Oh, but summons her zombie off to the side to come out and draw attention. But she succeeds on her perception check to see that when the lightning strikes, you can see the outline. But then you have a decision to make. Do you go after the zombie that's an imminent threat, or try the gamble to see whether or not it pays off and stab at the invisibility? she stabs it and succeeds. And I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
Well, now that you've said it that way, I can't not see it that way.
Maybe I've had too many D&D encounters that involved invisible, like, spellcasters summoning minions and trying to, divert battlefield attention that just fits so nicely into that.
I have to say, sometimes in movies, invisibility is a nice, like, change of pace. Because not a lot of people do invisibility because it's very easy to make it very hokey. Like the old Invisible Man was like where they just got like a cigar on a fucking
the end of Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
The next time that I tell you that I saw something when I saw it, you believe me that I saw it.
Oh, relax. Now that we've seen the last of Dracula, the Wolfman and the monster, there's nobody to frighten us anymore.
Oh, that's too bad. I was hoping to get in on the excitement.
Who said that?
Allow me to introduce myself. I'm the Invisible Man.
Well, that one's great because Vincent Price was the Invisible Man.
They got the glasses and the cigarette floating in the boat.
However, what I think makes the scene with Helena Marcos work is I was watching a visual essay that was on the disc I bought of Suspiria, and they said every effect in this movie was done in camera.
That doesn't surprise me.
So, like, I'm just sitting there trying to figure out how they did that silhouette of Helena Marcos and the light, and I'm like, how?
Right, yeah.
Mirrors or something, because, like, I watched that scene, and it's like, I can't figure that out. And that's the type I love in film, is when I don't know how it's done.
Yeah.
And not like, oh, they did it on a computer, and I don't know computers, womp womp. It's like, no, they did this with what they had available.
And computers you can really do... Because you're not limited by reality, just the speed and storage of the tech, like anything is possible inside a computer if you're clever enough. Where in practical effects, you are limited by the laws of physics and how light works and how, all of these things. So when you see something that's a practical effect that you can't quite get your head around, it really sparks the imagination for production guys.
No, exactly, and I love that. And like, the cinematographer who directed this, who shot this movie, he is fascinating because he was still pretty early on in his career at the time, and this was one of the last films. It wasn't shot in 3-strip Technicolor because there wasn't really any labs that could process that at the time.
Okay.
But they finished it in the Technicolor process, so that way they had full control of their blues, greens, and reds. So that way they can change the dye amounts, and because of that is how you got those striking images. And it's one of those things, like, you can see the influence this movie has had on filmmakers to this day. Like, you can see, like, oh, this person definitely saw Suspiria.
Right.
And loved it. Like, I watch Nicholas Winding Refn is one of my favorite filmmakers working today, and I can see Dario Argento all over his work.
I mean, it's very possible that the reference I made earlier with Creepshow, it was that vivid pop of colors, which they just used as little, accents, but could very well have been inspired by.
I can almost guarantee it was, and here's why. George Romero and Dario Argento were good friends.
Oh,
because Argento produced Dawn of the Dead.
Oh, okay.
Because he's such a big fan of Night of the Living Dead that he, I think, produced. I don't think he wrote it. Give me 1 second. I will find out. He was involved, though. Dead air. All right. Yep, written by George Romero. Music by Goblin and Dario Argento, and he's the reason. Argento is the reason that it got. He helped finance it. It looks like, and got it played in Italy, where it was just known simply as Zombie.
Okay.
So
nice.
They are good friends, and that's part of the reason. What's interesting though. As we've been talking a lot of it, about Argento's thing with story. And what I find fascinating is he co-wrote one of the greatest westerns of all time, Once Upon a Time in the West.
Oh, really?
Which
so he can do story. It's not a lack of technical ability. It's a intentional choice to do something more abstract with story.
Yeah. And I don't know. Like, I don't want to say like he wasn't thinking about it, because that's not the case. I just feel like when things like the maggot scene came up, he's, I'm sure there's a script supervisor somewhere going like, this doesn't make sense, and he's like, I don't care.
Right.
Some nerd in Wisconsin will read too much into it. We'll be good.
There was one series of scenes that I think I made a connection to. I actually wanted to go back and watch the scene, but ran out of time. During it might be the only time that you actually see them dancing. Like,
yeah, this dance school with very little dancing.
Yeah. And I believe the instructor is talking about like the dance relating to fish somehow. Like in this, you're playing the part of fish or something. It was connecting the dancers to fish. And then in the very next scene, she starts. Oh, that's where she faints.
Yeah,
she's having a hard time keeping up, and they move her to a side room where the wallpaper looks exactly like fish scales.
Yeah.
And then in the very next...
There's also birds on that wallpaper as well.
Yeah, that was the... Well, no, this is... The first room she's in has the fish bird going in the opposite direction.
Oh, you're right, yes.
This was a separate room that just looked like fish scales. But, again, like, I had forgotten that fish visual from earlier. And then the next shot is the sink full of water going down the drain. So there was like, I wondered what the significance of that fish continuity was.
I think I could give the dumb answer.
Nice.
Fish out of water. She's not from this country. She's not from this school. She's an outsider in a lot of ways, and she's kind of floundering, pun intended. Ha ha.
Nailed it.
Yup. And then I feel like this is just some of the stuff that I've read into it, and like Suzy being accepted to this school was all intentional. I feel like Dario claiming that Suzy was a white witch makes sense to an extent if you think about she had to be accepted to this school. What's the dark witch's worst? What's their enemy? A white witch, especially one who doesn't know that. I assume if she is a white witch, she's got no clue. Like,
so you're thinking they brought her in specifically to destroy her,
harness her power, because I have a couple little things like her original roommate, the girl painted her those red nails.
Yeah.
That was her roommate for a little while, but once Suzy got sick, they have that line saying, "Oh, she was quick to move her stuff into the academy."
Yeah.
And because that's how they can control her, is having her in the academy. They're fucking with her food. They're fucking with her wine. They are trying to control her. Then once she catches on and stops drinking the wine and stops eating the fish, which that's another thing, she's eating fish.
Oh, is she?
Yeah, I only noticed it when they threw it in the garbage and it looked like fish.
I had a hard time because the soundtrack is so aggressive, and there's a lot of whispering happening with the dialogue. It was like, I feel like I didn't pick up on everything that I ordinarily would have, because
also doesn't help
just kind of hard to make out.
Also doesn't help that I don't know which version you watched, so I don't know how cleaned up the soundtrack was.
Oh, it was probably terrible. I watched it on YouTube, but
did it at least look good?
It looked good for you. Like, it didn't look super bad, but it wasn't fully restored 4K, Blu-ray.
That's fair.
Yada yada.
No, my main thing is that this is such a beautifully shot movie. I just wanted to make sure you didn't watch like a pukey version of it that goes ripped from a VHS or something.
Yeah, no, it wasn't VHS ripped. It wasn't, down compressed to the point that it was pixely. It looked nice.
All right. Because that was my biggest fear, is because with Synapse owning the rights to the distribution of this film right now, and it's, once upon a time you could watch it on Amazon, but then it kind of went away, and I was like, oh, I hope Nick can actually find this movie.
Didn't pull up on any of the major platforms, but then we'll give YouTube a try. Yup, there it is.
And like I would have just said, "Oh, you could just buy it," but it was limited to like 5,000 copies. The version I got, so it's sold out.
Right? Yeah.
But no, it's and I don't know. I can't have a steady diet of things like this. But when I was in film school, I kind of went in thinking art film was stupid and it makes no sense. And I had a couple really cool teachers that kind of opened my mind to art house cinema. And because of that, like I'm not saying you can't do this, but since you're more of a story-driven guy, I've gotten I won't even say good. I feel comfortable that I can read into not knowing. Yeah. And I can't have a steady diet of films like this. I can't just like every day this week I'm gonna watch a Suspiria-esque film with no story that's abrasive to my senses. But I have noticed that when films like this come out of nowhere, they tend to really gravitate with me. Like, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, whatever year the Neon Demon came out, which in a lot of ways feels inspired by Suspiria. It has a little bit more story than Suspiria, but a lot you still need to dig into. It was my favorite movie that year because no matter what happened, I couldn't stop thinking about it.
Nice.
Or like his previous film, Drive. There's not a lot of story in that film, but it's just everything in it works. I don't know.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, no, I'm far from the kind of person that thinks that art house film doesn't have a place or that it's self-indulgent nonsense. Like, I appreciate it. I appreciate what it does. Really, if nothing else, the experimentation that does when you do something dramatic and unexpected, if you do it well, it will inspire other things that will use it to tell interesting stories, which is where I am rewarded in watching film. So, like, I get it and I appreciate it. Again, I enjoyed watching this film.
Mm-hmm. I did.
I'd probably watch it one more time to just like knowing how it ended, to go back and
kind of piece it together.
Get a little more out of it. I think you would. It also, like, the pacing of it reminded me of God, what is that? It was a Japanese horror film.
That narrows it down a lot.
What's that? Yeah,
that narrows it down a lot.
It's best known for the end sequence because, like, it is an hour and a half of almost nothing, and then one creepy sequence in the end where this girl is like has this adult man pinned down and she's sticking needles in him.
Audition?
And yes, yeah, titty.
Yeah. Needles, girl, pinned down, audition. That's the cover.
That's the one.
That's the cover.
The pacing reminded me of Audition.
Yeah. I did find an interesting quote, if you don't mind me reading another quote to you.
I do mind. Please don't.
All right. Well, then I'm not going to, except I'm going to. It's from that website Kino Eye that I told you about before, and the author Linda Schultz-Sass, who called Argento Disney's Hidden Reverse. I wish I would have found this sooner when we were talking about the folkloric elements of Suspiria, but she kind of summarizes it in a nice way. The characters are not psychologically developed, but correspond with folkloric types. A protagonist on a quest by which she will lose her innocence, helper figures who show the way, and a malevolent maternal trio composed of dance instructor Miss Tanner, played by Alida Valli, administrator Madame Blanc, Joan Bennett, and the whiteness of whose name stands in ironic contrast to the Black Queen of witchcraft, Helena Marcos, a 19th century Greek immigrant and now the school's elusive headmistress.
Nice.
So, I don't know. I thought it summarized it very nicely.
Yeah.
One thing that fascinates me is that Argento originally wanted, when he wrote the script for this, it was supposed to be all like preteen girls in a dance academy. Because he wanted it to fit into that idea, because most folklore stories is about children.
Yeah.
And Goblin's soundtrack feels very childish at times with the toy piano and like the whispering, and it feels childish. And he did little things throughout the film to kind of, because the investors read their script. He's like, you can't have this much violence in a movie of children.
Come on.
And he's like, what? So he tried the best he can to just make it feel childish. He cast actors with bigger eyes who are a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
And then
which is going to be true of dancers anyway.
Yeah, and this is something I never even noticed until someone mentioned it. I went back and watched it. All the doorknobs are higher than normal height.
Oh, interesting.
Because
cool.
he wanted it to dwarf the characters. He wanted them to feel small, wanted them to feel innocent.
And they were all of the rooms had really high ceilings also, which I can't say whether or not that's normal for the architecture of the place, but and obviously it was supposed to be this grand place, but that again helped with that,
And it's interesting too, like how I described earlier that this is considered his second to first film. It's also the first film he ever made with a female protagonist.
Okay.
And which I imagine is also the influence of his muse at the time, Daria Nicolodi.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just find it interesting how, he kind of at the middle of, not the middle, but he was a couple films deep at this time. Kind of had a resurgence of. He'd been making films steadily for 10 years, and he's just like, nope, I'm gonna try something different now.
Yeah, that's awesome. It reminded me of a story I heard recently. I think it was an NPR This American Life piece about a comic in France, I think, who was huge. He brought stand-up comedy to France, inspired by American stand-up.
That's kind of neat.
And he was huge. He was like the king of stand-up there, and he would sell out everything. But he got to the point where everybody would laugh at every joke, and he got kind of burned out on it. It wasn't a challenge for him anymore. So he came to America to make it where stand-up was born, and had to start all over again.
Mm-hmm.
And he was challenged by the language barriers and what Americans found funny versus what the audience he was accustomed to finding funny. So he came over here and bombed over and over and over again, but figured it out and got better and better. He's good friends with Jerry Seinfeld apparently. But that idea of doing something really well and learning a lot about it, and then okay, let's take on a new challenge now.
No, it's the same as the comedian Bobcat Goldthwait, where it's funny, he's kind of become an influence on me in a lot of ways. Because I've always liked him as a comedian. I liked his character. I liked when he pops up in films. But then he disappeared for a while.
Yeah.
And without knowing he directed him, I saw a couple of his movies. He became a writer-director.
Oh, okay.
And he did a movie called World's Greatest Dad with Robin Williams. Another movie called God Bless America. And then a Bigfoot found footage movie called Willow Creek.
Awesome.
And he's kind of become an influence on me just because he started directing because he didn't know if he actually could.
Sure. Yeah.
And he just started writing stuff, and he writes his own weird scripts, and he doesn't have other people write for him. And he talks about a little bit about how he was doing very well. That character was very well known. He was in the Police Academy movies, which he doesn't particularly like. And he jokingly says that I retired from acting when they stopped hiring me. But he started feeling like that character was a crutch.
Let's go. Let's get to work.
Come on, dudes. Chill out.
You dudes are setting a bad example.
Can't hear you, bro. Can't you see I'm getting my beauty sleep?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Move it!
You sure told them. Did you ever think about, like, maybe getting some contact lenses or something like, you know? You look good, you know.
Because, like he said, when he first started doing comedy, he was all about doing anti-comedy, where, like, he'd go out there and read a Dear John letter in complete tears and then gut a fish. And then when he started getting booze, he would put that character on and start insulting the audience and to get them pissed off. But then they started liking it.
Yeah.
And then it's like people started liking this character and him showing up, and he was only getting roles if he put on the character and everything. And so not only he's like, you know what, I don't want to really do this anymore because it's not fun, and I feel like it's an insecurity thing. So he's still doing stand up, but he's doing it normal.
Yeah.
He doesn't put the character on anymore. He jokingly says he did it for Snickers because he said the amount for a Snickers commercial. He said the amount of money Snickers paid him, he would have done anything. But he's directing now, and I just kind of like that he completely reshaped his career.
Yeah.
And I kind of look up to that a little bit.
Yeah. Totally. Nice.
So what else do we have to add on to Suspiria or Bobcat Goldthwait, whatever we want to talk about?
So what's up with that dog?
Oh, the attack dog.
That dog was a jerk.
That scene is really bothersome, though.
Again, like, you know, in hindsight, you learn that it most likely under the spell of the witches, as was the bat that, and then flopped along the ground until she threw a towel on it and then smashed.
Yeah.
Also, the bat looked like it was trying really hard to flush the toilet for a little while.
It did. Like, it was weird. That bat scene is like I look at it, it's like, that's not a very good bat, but it was a lot more aggressive than just a normal bat in a string, and it was both like amusing and like frightening at the same time. Like, oh, get away, big bat.
Its mouth was open the entire time with these rows of teeth, like, ah.
I just watched the new Godzilla, Shin Godzilla, and like through half the film, his mouth is just open and he's got googly eyes because he evolves in that film. And when he first comes out of the water, he's got no arms and just got like a swivelly head and big googly eyes and a giant mouth. I'm like, what?
Amazing.
But going back to that attack scene real quick in that square, really bothered me for a couple reasons. One, like it's interesting. It's one of the few scenes that have no crazy lighting. Okay, and they said the reason they didn't is completely practical reason. It was too hard to light that much space.
Right. It was huge, and you get this great feeling of emptiness that you get in a lot of the film, but it's most prominent in that scene.
Yeah, and like you think that he's blind too, so he can't see it coming, and the one thing that's supposed to protect him is the one that attacks him. And like, you know, they show like one of those buildings, and you see I didn't notice this until someone pointed it out, and I went back and watched it. You see 3 figures fly past in shadows.
Oh, nice.
Which gives me the impression of witches.
Yep. Totally.
And then to find out, I'm sorry.
And earlier on, when one of them accuses him of the dog attacking her son, you never see the attack, and so
you hear it.
So then later on, when this happens, there's still the question of, did the dog attack the kid? Mm-hmm. Because there is now evidence that it did, but not proof. But also, at the end, there's evidence that very likely it didn't, and they were just using that to somehow manipulate the situation. That was an interesting story bit that I enjoyed.
Yeah, and then like what's interesting too about that square, because originally I looked at it, it's like, this does not feel like Germany. And I looked it up, and that square is apparently where they used to hold Nazi rallies. And I was like, well, that just adds a whole new resonance to this, to this scene. I don't know. Plus, it's like we mentioned, it is, you know, it's not light the normal way. It's very empty and very spacious, and it's just, I don't know, kind of unsettling.
Yeah.
But I think that's Suspiria, Nick.
So Suspiria, unsettling.
Yeah.
If you want to be unsettled, that's a great one.
Yeah, it's got my my 2 thumbs up for unsettling.
Yeah.
You'd mentioned kind of off the ear, kind of on the ear, depends on how the edit goes.
Yeah.
Having watched something new, Nick, tell me.
And you mentioned how this director is the Hitchcock of Italy.
Yeah, that's kind of what he's known as.
I watched a Hitchcock film that I was not aware of, based on a French author's novel, I believe, Rebecca.
Announcing the return of the most glamorous motion picture ever made, David O. Selznick and Alfred Hitchcock bring you the Grand Slam prize winner that made motion picture history. Winner of the Academy Award, voted by America's critics as the best picture of the year. And now, as a result of a national poll, winning new honors as audiences throughout the country vote to see it again. The Selznick Studio's successor to Gone with the Wind, Rebecca, brought to the screen with all the warmth and emotion that made millions of readers acclaim Daphne du Maurier's bestseller as the most exciting love story of our time. The fascinating Max de Winter lives on the screen in the person of Laurence Olivier.
Why, it's Max de Winter.
How do you do? The shy, unsophisticated young girl who dared to follow in the footsteps of the beautiful Rebecca is portrayed by lovely Joan Fontaine.
How could I ask you to love me when I knew you loved Rebecca still? Whenever you touched me, I knew you were comparing me with Rebecca.
What is the mystery of Rebecca? What dread secret is hidden within the silent walls of Manderley?
It's not only in this room. It's in all the rooms in the house. I can almost hear it now. Do you think the dead come back and watch the living?
Tell me, is Mrs. Van Hopper a friend of yours or just a relation?
No, she's my employer. I'm what is known as a paid companion.
I didn't know companionship could be bought.
There is mystery, love, and laughter in Rebecca, the motion picture still unsurpassed for suspenseful romance.
Yeah, which one happens? Isn't Sean Connery in that one?
No.
Or am I? What movie am I thinking? I'm thinking of Marnie. Never mind.
But it is. Let me pull it up here. The male lead, I was told, was a big influence on what the Dread Pirate Roberts.
Princess Bride?
Yeah, who's the actor?
Carrie Ellis?
Yeah. Was a and if you saw Rebecca with that in mind, you'd see it, like the way that he delivers things, even the mustache.
It's a great mustache.
Laurence Oliver.
Gotcha.
Olivier, sorry.
Lawrence Olivier. Yeah, I know.
That is different than Laurence Oliver.
It doesn't sound nearly as impressive. Lawrence Oliver. Yeah, I've seen Olivier and stuff.
And Joan Fontaine. Those are the two leads.
Joan Fontaine. That's a good name.
And since we're certainly not worrying about spoilers at all, because we never do. Really fascinating. I mean, very, very Hitchcock-ian. Hitchcocky?
Hitchcockian? Hitchcockian. Hitchcock-Smith. Hitchcock-Smith.
Really, really cool story. It has that same kind of, like, you're setting... It's set up to be a film like any other in this time period, but then there's this specter of that woman falls in love with a man very quickly on the spur of the moment. He proposes to her and says, if you want, we'll get married and move to my giant estate, because he's super rich, she is not. But there's this specter of his first wife, Rebecca, who we know died about a year ago from drowning. And what is really cool about the film is how much of a character Rebecca is and how much power Rebecca has, how much weight she has.
Yeah.
Without you ever seeing her.
That is fascinating.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed it. Has that Hitchcock twist towards the end.
He's another director that even if I don't necessarily love one of his films, it's very confidently directed, and
yeah,
he definitely everything in the frame, he's meticulously planned.
Yeah, and everything in the story too, where the direction I come at it with, every line, every thought has a reason. It's bringing you back to this other point earlier, or setting you up for something before that you're about to experience. And layers upon layers of subtext that just makes me feel happy all over.
One of the things I liked about Hitchcock so much is, and I don't know, there's critics of Hitchcock that felt like it, in a way it was holding him back because he could have done so much more than he already fucking did, was that he was very mindful of the audience.
Okay.
He's like, he could make something, like, let's just say he could make something like Suspiria, for example, because he wanted to make very violent, very out there, weird things. And he's like, and I could make something like that, and 80% of the audience will enjoy it, or I can make something that's got a little more
palatability.
What?
Palatability
and 100%, and lose a little bit of artistic merits,
right. Yeah.
And 100% of the audience will like it.
Yeah.
It's the reason why at the end of Psycho he added that little monologue from the doctor, explaining Norman Bates' mental condition, because
right.
he could have ended it perfectly well on the shot of Norman Bates, and we never quite known.
Yeah.
But by adding that little speech, even the people who aren't fully paying attention can know what's going on, and that way more people will like it. So
it was the friends I was watching it with. At one point, I was like, "All right, so let me get this straight," and I outlined kind of how I understood what I
imagine
just
you
saw.
had like one of those thin cigarettes too while you're like
yes,
like Herschel Poirot.
And then I also saw Murder on the Orient Express in the theater recently.
The new one?
Yeah.
We could talk about that in a second too, because I've seen it.
Okay. But so right as soon as I get done explaining what I thought I just saw, then there's this sequence of her lying in bed, tossing and turning with those words repeating to really drill in. Like it was Hitchcock going, yeah, okay, I heard you had a question. I heard you weren't sure, so here you go. Let me make sure you understand that.
Yeah. And like I can see the commenters who said, if you didn't have, because like it was in film school, like if I would choose to put narration in a scene, they're like, oh, it'd be stronger without it. Granted, there's a little more question about what it truly means, but it's likability versus artistic credibility, if that makes sense. It's not saying that you can't make something very artistic that still has audience likability, but it's usually a juggle, and I feel like because he juggled it so well is why he's still to this day one of the most successful filmmakers of all time.
My wife has this uncanny, and I think it comes from a really strong instinct about story, but no matter what we watch, multiple times she will go, yeah, but what about this? And then, or why did that happen? Or who is that? And without fail, every time it cuts to the scene answering her question, because like I think she can sense that that's the point in the story where it's supposed to explain it.
Oh, the Suspiria would piss her off.
Yeah, shouldn't there be a bat attack here? I feel like those maggots should be coming out of something in the attic.
Probably spoiled meat, I think.
Yeah, I would think. And I'm guessing it has absolutely nothing to do with the broader narrative. Because maggots.
That's the reason. Because maggots are gross.
Because maggots.
Yeah,
boy,
because maggots.
Weren't those maggots gross?
Yeah. I like to imagine if someone asks him, it's like, so what was with the maggots in Suspiria? Because maggots.
Yeah.
It's the only English he knows. Because maggots.
Murder on the Orient Express.
So I'll be the first to say I have not seen the original one yet. I have a copy of it. I was gifted a copy of it. I've not seen it yet.
That is my first entry into Poirot at all.
Yeah, I knew of him because I'd see it on TV. I wouldn't watch it, but I saw the name, and then Kevin Smith referenced it in Chasing Amy. But that's about the extent of my knowledge.
I was listening to an interview with Patton Oswalt, and he referenced Poirot, and I'm like, oh, I get that now. Look at me, all cultured.
Chris Hardwick one time said in one of his podcasts that not everything is for everyone.
Yeah.
Not everything. You don't have to like everything. Unless you're Patton Oswalt, where I feel like he legitimately likes everything. Or not everything, but if there's a weird subculture of nerddom, he's involved.
Yep.
Because he knows everything. Music, video games, horror movie. He's got his toes in everything. I don't know how he has time for anything.
Oh, he just has a lot of toes.
Yeah.
27 to be exact.
Yeah, because when Chasing Amy, Kevin Smith referenced Herschel Poirot, or at the end when Ben Affleck is grilling, I can't think of her name.
Joey Adams.
Joey
Lauren Adams.
Her. Lauren Joey or whatever her name is.
Yeah.
And
Amy.
Well, technically no, it's not her name.
No, it's been a while since I've seen it.
But he's trying to figure out whether about her past and everything, and she references what are you, Herschel Poirot? Because he's not being subtle at all.
Yeah.
But anyways, what do you think of Orient Express?
My impression of it is the film. I felt like an outsider. It wasn't a film written for everyone. It was a film made for Agatha Christie fans, I felt.
Yeah.
It was, for the most part, enjoyable, but the whole time I felt like it was, hey, Poirot fans, did you catch that? Hey, Poirot fans, get that? Mm-hmm. And I went the whole time going, no, I
did not.
But cool.
Yeah, and I liked elements of it. I thought all the performances were really good. I'm not going to spoil this one because it's still kind of... Well, is it new? Because it's technically an old story. Well, whatever.
I spoil anything and everything.
Well, did not see that ending coming. Where, for everyone listening, we're going to spoil the end of Murder on the Orient Express, where everyone
did it.
Everyone's the killer. It's I sat there, I honestly did not see that coming.
Et tu, Brute?
Yeah. And there's some time, like I said, I enjoyed it. I thought Poirot was a funny character. I enjoyed a lot of his humor bits.
Yeah.
I was amused they killed off Johnny Depp so early. Because you watch you go back and watch the trailer for that movie, and they really beef him up as being the villain. And it's funny how he's barely in the movie, but he's also kind of the most important character in the movie.
Right.
It's that's some interesting casting. He's I want to be the most important character in this movie, but not have any screen time. Okay, we got a perfect character for you.
You have not seen The Cube, correct?
Not yet. It's on my shame list.
Okay. Then I will not spoil that for you. But what you just said reminds me of kind of how they promoted The Cube, which hopefully I'll remember.
Who was in The Cube again?
No one of any note that I can think of.
I keep thinking it was Jennifer Lopez. Wasn't she in some mind-bending...
That's in The Cell.
The Cell, okay.
And,
I get all these...
Vince Vaughn was also in that before he was just played himself every time.
I know. I get all those titles kind of confused. And
But I pitched both of those films to you in the same, here's a list of films that I think you would really enjoy.
Yeah, wasn't that also in the same list of Dark City?
Yes.
All right, yeah, I remember this.
And they all have a similar dark sci-fi, not dystopian vibe to it.
Okay, that's cool. But I Murder on Orient Express is a movie I had a lot of fun watching, even if I didn't get everything. It's I don't get that reference, but yay for trying.
Right. Yeah.
So there's some performance in there. Really, Josh Gad really impressed me because I'm still used to him being the comedy actor, but he was one of my favorite characters in that movie, and it was a lot of fun to watch. I don't know how often I'm going to watch it. I'm looking forward to seeing the original, and seeing like which one I prefer.
Yeah.
But it was kind of interesting being the youngest person in the movie. Well, actually, technically, Amanda was the youngest person in the movie theater, but, whatever.
I had also had 1 or 2 cocktails prior to arriving in the theater, so I wasn't quite as sharp as I usually am.
So you're just belligerent and like, I don't get this movie.
That's his bullshit. I'd take any criticism from me with a grain of salt.
It's funny. Recently, we saw a trailer for the new Liam Neeson movie, The Commuter, and I looked to Amanda and go, "Another murder on the Orient Express."
How many of these do we need?
Yeah, it's just the high octane version of the same movie,
right?
With Liam Neeson, which I have to say, I never would have expected him to become an action star. I still look at him as like, why are you an action star?
Was that all an effect from Ra's al Ghul?
No, it was Taken.
Okay.
Because of Taken, now he's like
don't know who you are.
The older bad.
But I will find you, and I will kill you.
I don't know, I feel like I'm in the minority that saw Taken. I was like, it was okay.
I have not seen it.
It's okay.
It's okay. Take it or leave it.
Ah! Oh. And that's why people keep coming back to this show.
It is that quality level of wordplay that really ropes in the views.
I agree. Since I think we're kind of running out of steam here.
Yeah.
I feel like we kind of talked... I don't know if it's going to be our next episode, but we talked a little bit about an upcoming episode.
Yes.
Is that going to be our next one, or is that the one after?
I don't think so. I think that's going to be, like, second half of February.
All right. We can spoil it for everyone.
Totally. And we had already talked about it in an earlier episode.
We had talked in an earlier episode, whatever episode that was, about doing a double feature.
Dark City episode, because I just edited
then it was the Dark City episode. I was going to be like, if you tell us what episode it was, you get a prize, but now they don't.
Ooh, what prize do I get?
You can get... Have you seen my newest film? Do you love
No.
Well, then you get a link to that. Congratulations. Yes! We are going to do a double feature of Super Mario Brothers and...
Yes! He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, I believe is how it's titled.
Yes, which I've never seen. Nick hasn't seen Super Mario Brothers. It's gonna be a very weird episode.
We decided that this would be the shameful or the shame on us podcast episode.
Yeah, because like I personally love Super Mario Brothers and everyone hates it, and now I'm subjecting Nick to watching it, and it's gonna be a great time.
I think I've put that clip of them getting checked into the police station and the Luigi Mario. All right, between the two of you, how many Marios are there? There's 3. There's Mario, and Luigi Mario. I've used that clip like 3 times in the video.
I watched that movie, and I watched. It's like, how do people dislike this movie? It's like, honestly, if Super Mario Brothers and Dark City and had a baby, that's Super Mario Brothers the movie.
Beautiful.
Like I'm honestly 100% serious there. That is this movie.
Sweet.
So it's gonna be a good time.
I can't wait. I'm excited.
But first, we need to decide what we're doing next episode.
Yeah. So this was on my shame list. So it's your turn.
Let me see if I can cut out all this dead air. I'm gonna pull up my shame list.
We did just mention The Cube and The Cell, if either of those suit your fancy.
Well, let's see what I've got on here real quick to see if there's anything like big that I feel like we've missed before. Because I always like mixing it up with like smaller films, bigger films, and kind of finding a mixture. So I'm gonna just name off a couple films and tell me if you've seen any of them or if you have any interest. Cabaret, I've never seen.
I have not either.
Charlie Varick.
I have not.
Chinatown.
I have not.
Dirty Harry.
I have seen that.
So that's another one I haven't seen. I've never seen Easy Rider.
Neither have I.
Bob Dylan, Don't Look Back.
I have not seen that.
Apocalypse Now.
I have not. Have we seen any movies?
Lawrence of Arabia.
I have not seen that.
God damn, we haven't seen anything, have we?
Well, we can certainly do a movie that neither of us have seen.
Raging Bull is one I haven't seen.
I have not seen that.
Taxi Driver I haven't seen. I know you've seen that.
I have seen Taxi Driver.
So that could be an episode. You know what? Wait, no, I don't want... Miranda's got a family friend coming to visit, her best friend, and she wants to watch The Godfather.
Okay.
I need to see when she's coming to town.
But that we should do as an upcoming one.
I said all this dead air will be cut out. February 2nd is when they're visiting.
Okay, so that's kind of our mid-February episode. So we need something before that.
Yeah. It was either going to be Cabaret or Dirty Harry.
What's your preference?
Well, I've kind of been wanting to watch Dirty Harry, but I'd be fine with something, because I don't think we've done many musicals.
Let's do... Well, Dirty Harry's not a musical.
Well, Cabaret is.
Oh, okay. Dirty Harry the musical. I thought maybe you were thinking of Paint Your Wagon.
Can we make Dirty Harry the musical?
Yes.
We just got to find it. That would be a perfect for on the stage.
What was the Bob's Burgers episode? There was Working Girl and Die Hard.
Yeah.
They combined both of those movies into a single musical.
I also like in Rushmore when he did the stage play of Serpico.
Nice. I have not seen Rushmore.
Well, that's a good one.
All right, we got Dirty Harry next.
Okay.
We might need one more episode after that, but then Godfather.
Yeah.
And then Super Mario, He-Man double feature.
Yeah. So
we got
the
a
next
few.
Yeah, we got the next 3 episodes.
3
planned.
of 4.
If we need another one in there, we'll post something off your shame list.
Nice.
All right.
Sweet. Fun.
Well, everyone, that has been this episode of the Shamelist Picture Show.
I hope you enjoyed it. We certainly did.
Yeah, that's it. Goodbye, Nick.
All right. Later, suckers. And stop recording.